Sarah, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Fast. Alongside me every week is manager Jacob. And Jacob, what are you drinking or eating this week?
Sarah, this is an episode all about kind of a trip recap.
Yeah, we've both been away on vacation for the last little while, and we're back from 5 weeks of not recording. And so this is our full catch up that you all get to hear in real time because we haven't talked to each other about our trips
And
yet.
what I'm bringing back from my trip, listen, when I left, didn't really mess around with gin. Coming back,
A big gin guy
give
now?
me all the Negronis in the world. I'm a Negroni guy
That's
now.
you were in Italy drinking Negronis. Like
That
that's
is
like
exactly
yeah.
right. That is exactly right.
So like what's
So that's what I'm drinking this week. I'm making Negronis at home. I'm making Aperol spritzes.
I'll come over for an Aperol Spritz.
You know what I
I'd love a
had
Spritz.
too for the first time? Well, this wasn't for the first time. Limoncello. Have you ever had it?
Yeah, I had a limoncello spritz the other day when I was in Halifax. It's
I had my first one.
Real.
So
Saint
good.
Germain spritz also great. There's so many spritz
you did the
options.
spritz
Tower.
Spritz
Yeah.
Tower. That looked good.
It was magical.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm bringing back some Italian cocktails is what I'm doing.
I love that. We should have a little Italian cocktail night.
100%. What about you? What are you eating or drinking?
I'm eating a lot of lobster. Well, I just went fully in. I ate lobster linguine like 3 times while I was on the East Coast.
No
and I
way.
had lobster roll. I had the best lobster roll I've ever had in my life in Prince Edward Island. And it was magical. It was at Misa. It was so good. I just have been eating a lot of lobster. We kind of like, anytime we go to the cottage, the first night we go and pick up a bunch of lobsters and you buy them pre-cooked and then we have to like take them apart yourself.
Yeah.
And it was so funny watching all of my friends who have never taken apart a lobster. And it's like how I look when I first started doing it too. But all my friends who had never taken apart a lobster have to do it. It was actually hilarious because only a couple of us knew how to do it.
Yeah,
and like
yeah,
they
yeah.
just like couldn't wrap their heads
Do you
around
douse
it.
it in lemon? What do you do?
I
Butter?
have like a bunch of little bowls of butter and I just dunk it in butter. And then you
Little
make like
dunker.
sandwiches the next day or rolls or any of that stuff.
Got a quick aside for you that's basically like that because I'm like one of your friends that doesn't really know how to eat it on the Amalfi Coast. Very extremely long
Casually.
story short. Haley and I go to a seafood restaurant on our last day for lunch and they bring over a seafood platter and I don't mess around with prawns at all. But the chef and owner was there giving them to us in this platter and he was like, here you go, eat it. And I was like, okay, yep.
Yeah, you're like,
He
it's
walks away.
disrespectful if you don't.
I know there's a lot of stories about the disrespect in that meal that was we'll talk about it another day. But I was just like, okay. And I ate the little legs and the shell. And Haley looks up from her plate, looking at me doing this. There's probably like a little leg dangling out, and I'm crunching through it. Listen, we all have our moments.
You've been in Italy for weeks at this point, eating seafood, no?
No, you know what? I was just going so heavy on pasta and pizza
okay.
and clearly cocktails and whatnot that I
Yeah.
hadn't really got to the prawns yet.
Oh my God.
Yep, so that's my embarrassing story. What are we watching or reading this week, Sarah?
I want to talk about this, but we obviously haven't been doing the podcast. I went to the premiere of this show on Crave called The Dessert.
Oh, yeah.
I read it as The Desert the first few times, and then I show up, I go, oh, that's how you spell that. So it's The Dessert. And it's a sketch comedy show. So if you've ever seen I Think You Should Leave, which is like, I don't know about you guys, but my friends in my life, it's all they do is quote, I think you should leave. So it's similar. It's a sketch comedy show and it's Canadian though, which is what I loved. And it was really funny. Like really funny. Like I don't laugh out loud at a lot of shows. Like that's the truth. I just like in my head go, haha. And so I was laughing out loud though. It was so good. And so the rest of it was on Crave, I think as of the 7th. So then I just finished the rest of it when I was out east and it was really good.
Oh, amazing.
Did you finish the book that you went to Europe with?
Okay, yes. I just had to look up the name of it, but this week I haven't finished it yet.
Oh my God, you were in Europe for 3 weeks.
List the only time I read it, I hauled it around for 3 weeks, and I only read it one time when we were like at a beach club, just like posted up on some chairs in the sun, and I read half the book in just one sitting. Rick Rubin's A Creative Act.
Yeah, you've talked about it at least
Talked about it
3
for
or 4 times.
a long time. And listen, you know what? It did not. It held up. It was exactly what I wanted it to be. So it's kind of like short essays about creativity, and how to tap into that, and all sorts of different things. Taps into spirituality a little bit.
Wait, are you done it now?
Oh, we're working on it. We're working on it. We'll
God.
get there by the end of the summer, maybe. Would I have brought should I have brought an e-reader? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have an e-reader?
I don't know, but I think
It's the best for travel. When I first went to Europe in 2021 and I went to France, I brought 2 books with me and I finished them within the first like few days that I was there. And then it was like, well, all the books in France are in French. So trying to find an English book that I wanted to read was really difficult.
And then what? You're stuck bringing these around everywhere?
Exactly. I'm stuck because I want to bring them home. So then I
Exactly.
started dragging the books around. So getting an e-reader for travel was the best thing that ever happened to me. So yes, I highly recommend it.
That's actually super important.
What are you listening to? Do you have any more stuff to add to your Songs of Summer playlist or what?
This is on the playlist.
Is there gonna be some like Italian
yes,
like opera?
Okay, wait, it's not an Italian opera, although you know one thing I had the most fun doing on the trip. I had to download Shazam. You know how you can just ask Siri, you can be like, hey Siri, what song is this? I did that a few times, but then I was doing it in situations where I was going to be embarrassed if I just said that aloud, like in the back of a taxi, for example. So you want to be
able to like low key on your
Yeah, super low key. So I got Shazam just for that. And I was just Shazamming like every song in different areas that was kind of in the background. And then I made a playlist about the trip that just is basically a soundtrack of stuff that I was listening to in restaurants and on travel and taxis and that kind of stuff.
Vibey music.
Yeah. And it really runs the gamut. But one thing, I like this artist named Moem. He's from France. He released a track called Dolce How do you say it? Dolce Faniente.
If he's French, he wouldn't go like that.
But that's an Italian thing. So it's an Italian saying.
Interesting. The Frenchman with the Italian saying, got it.
Yeah, but the saying is, what does it mean? It's like the sweetness of doing nothing, which I'm sure you've seen on TikTok. You don't want to really watch TikTok. It went viral a little while ago. It went viral a little while ago. That's basically just like the art of chilling, essentially having a good time. It's an electronic song. He's a great DJ producer, and that's on Jacob's Songs of the Summer. Go check that out on Spotify. Huge track, big banger alert, and that's what I've been having on repeat recently. Also, I have to name drop one thing because this is going to come out in 2 days.
No.
Yep. Yeah, I've done the math.
The song is or the podcast?
This podcast comes out 2 days before what I'm saying.
I understand.
The 28th.
Okay.
Noah Kahan and...
I got called out the other day. It's Khan.
Oh,
I know.
Damn.
I got called out.
Okay, Noah Kahan and Post Malone.
I know. It comes out today.
No.
On Friday. It comes out today.
Oh, my God.
At 8 p.m. Like today, the day we're recording it.
It came out a week and a half ago. It's probably so good.
With Post Malone.
Okay, wait. Just in case. Should we keep that in?
Fuck it, who cares?
Okay, that's pretty good.
People like the chaos.
But anyway, Post Malone and Folk Malone together at once.
Yeah.
Huge track.
Huge track.
What about you? What are you listening to?
Okay, so my friend Tara, while we were at the cottage, introduced me to Big Booty Mixes. I'd never heard of this in my life. So it's these guys, and the whole thing is Two Friends presents. They're just called Two Friends. Like 2F mixes. And they're big booty mixes.
Where are you like reading this from?
Off of Spotify.
Oh, it's on Spotify. Okay.
And all it is like hour and a half long mixes of like as if a DJ is like mixing stuff, but it's all like bangers after bangers. You've got early 2000s bangers into like, it's like, remember when there used to be like the year wrap of like all those songs, like
DJ Earworm.
Yeah, it's like that the entire hour.
No
though.
Way.
So we were listening to that while playing like drinking games and stuff at the cottage. It was amazing. Big booty mixes is what they're called. I'd never heard of it before, but that's what I've been listening to.
Amazing.
The perfect pre-party music. Today, we're joined by Dr. Jia Hu, a public health and preventative medicine specialist, physician, and the CEO of 19 to 0, a not-for-profit aimed at encouraging health behavior changed around issues like vaccines, cancer screening, and chronic disease management. Dr. Hu, welcome to Talking Fast.
Thanks for having me.
I am someone personally, I'm not the best at this. I'll push off booking my doctor's appointments until kind of the last moment. And I think that that's something that probably is kind of aligned with how most men think about health and wellness. What can we do to make sure that men are taking care of themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I like you, I'm very similar. Even though I'm a doctor, I don't know if we're any better in the healthcare world. Probably worse, actually. I mean, I think one thing is just to talk about it, right? I think, like we all have sort of medical issues. Men, I think especially with mental health, becoming more and more important, it's important to sort of normalize and talk about these things, which is great. We're having this podcast. I think having some awareness of when it's important to start seeing your doctor is helpful too, because, I do think average 18-year-old is pretty healthy, but, I'm getting into my late 30s, and that's around the time we start wanting to see you at least once a year. And then, just talking to, others around me. I feel like a lot of the times actually, like women in men's lives actually like this is a common thing I see in my patients.
Yeah.
But, the more we can talk about these things, the more men know about the health issues they might want to talk about, the more likely we are to sort of have success with this.
Right. Is that an issue too? Because something that I think is a common thread among men as well is kind of waiting for something to be wrong to go and fix it, as opposed to maybe taking preventative measures.
Yeah, but I mean both, right? I think men are less likely to take preventative measures, and I think men are also sort of, when something is wrong, often less likely to, seek treatment. And, I think that's a function of a lot of things. I think men tend to be a bit more tough, right? They don't want to bring, they don't want to talk about these things. But again, it's really important that we do, whether for physical health or mental health or sexual health or, all these things, especially things that are more, stigmatized, I'll say.
So what tips can you share to help men feel more confident in taking care of their own health?
Yeah, so I think one thing that, we don't talk a lot about in men is something called HPV. It's an STI, sexually transmitted infection, which sort of always is not easy for folks to talk about. But there is, a really, really good vaccine for it. And really what you're trying to protect against with this vaccine, cancer actually. So HPV, human papillomavirus. I think a lot of women know about it because, it's what causes cervical cancer. Women will go get pap smears to sort of screen for cervical cancer. But it's the leading cause of actually head and neck cancer in men. And
wow.
I don't think people know that. And so, I think this is just one of the many things I think that, should be incorporated in any discussion around men's health.
So why do we not know more about this?
We did some surveys, and about, I think 80% of women know what it is, only about half of men. And I think, less than a sixth or a fifth, 20% of guys know that this can cause head and neck cancer. I think it's just, it's not something that people know a lot about. It's not something that people like to talk about, right? I think especially when it comes to things like STIs or, mental health, where there is more stigma around the issue, people just don't talk about it. And that's why it's important we're talking about it. At least for women, we can screen for cervical cancer. Not that, that's particularly pleasant, I don't think. But, with men, there's no real screening for men or for women for head and neck cancer. There's no good test for it. And that's why it's all the more important, I think, to get the preventative vaccine that's almost, 100% effective at stopping this from happening.
Right. Okay. So as someone who does put it off, let's just step-by-step process.
Yeah.
You said you can go into your family doctor if you don't have one, your pharmacist, you walk in, you can just ask for a vaccination for this.
So a bit more background on the vaccine. So the HPV vaccine came out in about 2006. And, we've given hundreds of millions of doses, so very, very safe vaccine. In Canada, we started giving it to girls in around 2007 or 8, so a lot of women have had it. But we didn't start giving it to boys, and we give it to kids in junior high, normally in Ontario, until 2016 or 2017. And so that means most people who are, older than junior high in 2016 or 2017, so if you're in your, mid-20s, later 20s, 30s, you're probably not going to have had it. Very unlikely. And so, to get the vaccine, you of course ask your family doctor or ask your pharmacist. They should know about it. You can kind of check to see if you've had it. Like you could, in Ontario, you use a little yellow cards. I don't know if you know about
I
it.
remember the clinic coming to my middle school.
Yeah. There you go. See? I don't know how old you are, but I feel like that. But regardless, I think if you're past a certain age, you're probably not going to have had the vaccine as a guy. I also, think that, as far as things, it's a very, very safe, a very, very effective vaccine, very few side effects.
Right. And then, okay, so if you want to bring this up with your friends, what are some entry points do you think
That's
the best
a good
way
question.
to approach this?
How do we end the stigma? What's a talking point? How do we end
have
it
you
here?
heard about this thing that causes cancer? You know what? And you can prevent it with a vaccine?
That's not
That's the way
bad.
to
That's
do
not
it.
bad.
And
That's a good way to do it.
I think that, a lot of, I think that, not that any STI should be stigmatized, because none of them should be, but I think, I try to frame this as, it's a cancer prevention vaccine, right?
Right.
And it also gives you genital warts and stuff. But fundamentally, the most bad thing it gives you is cancer, and that can kill you. It can lead to big surgeries you need, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's sort of what I would say. I think pharmacists are a great resource to talk to, family doctors too, if you kind of have one.
Other prevention methods as well.
I mean, I think the best thing actually is the vaccine because it is so effective. But, other ways, HPV is a sexually transmitted infection, so wearing a condom can help. But, unlike with some STIs, a condom is not going to, because it's spread through skin-to-skin contact, like wearing a condom will help, but it's not going to prevent cases all the time. I think having a generally strong immune system is good, and that goes back to sort of the eating healthy, exercising regularly, sleeping enough. But at the core of it, this is why we need vaccines for this, right? It's I think that, it's not like a lifestyle disease or anything like that. The fact is most Canadians will get it, and vaccination is the most important way of preventing it.
So Jacob and I have both been away for a few weeks. This is our first time recording a podcast in like 5 or 6 weeks or something. And we need to do a little catch up. So what do you want from us? We're just catching up.
What do you want from us?
And we actually haven't talked to each other about each other's trips. We've basically only talked about like work, to be honest, for the past few weeks. So we've saved all the good stuff and all the curiosity for this episode. So first of all, Jacob, where the hell have we been for the past month?
Oh, we've been everywhere. Very different places. And this is kind of off the heels of like summer travel that we were talking about a few episodes ago, a few weeks ago. Of like you were kind of staying in Canada in the summer here right now, and I was going to Europe for the first time, which is where I was, which was amazing.
Which countries did you hit up?
Okay, started in London, went over to France. But we did Paris and Epernay, which is like a little town in the Champagne region, which is great. Went down to the Amalfi Coast in Italy. That was awesome. Then we went up to Rome, Milan, and then finished in Barcelona.
What was your favorite part? What was the most overrated part?
Okay, favorite part.
Or like favorite city, area, whatever.
Favorite city, Barcelona, which was nice to end
everyone
with.
Always says Barcelona.
Really love. We stayed right in the heart of the Gothic quarter, which is amazing architecture.
Cool.
We kind of went around there because there was so much to do, so much to eat, so much to drink, and then it's easy walking distance to the beach. So we kind of also had a beach day, enjoyed that. And just a cool vibe in the city. It's there's touristy stuff to do and a lot of tourists around, but it didn't feel too touristy.
I've never been to Barcelona. It's like very high on my list though. Everyone says great things about it.
If I was going to go back to somewhere and go back for to somewhere for a longer period of time, that would be first on the list of the locations.
What was the most overrated?
Overrated, it's tough to say because like different things are overrated for different reasons. I would say probably Rome. I liked the history that was there and like and doing some of the tours and that kind of stuff I would say is worth it.
Yeah.
But overall, kind of an off-putting city.
Yeah.
It feels like a mall. It feels like going
what a
to
way
a
to
mall.
describe. I've heard other people describe very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's like a satire of what it wants Italy to be, but it's not actually like Italy.
It didn't. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It was like
a satire of itself almost.
It was like, yeah, exactly. I was like, it was at East Side Mario's or something like that.
Yeah, true. Jesus. Go to Rome and be like, hey, bada bing, bada bing.
What about you? You've been traveling around as well. Where have you been?
Since the podcast, the last episode we did was the Taylor Swift Eras Tour recap.
Yes.
So since then, I went to the Jules Sawyer bachelorette party in Las Vegas, which I think took a few years off my life. I'm not going to lie to you. But it was so much fun. Honestly, like Had
you been to Vegas before?
Yes, I've been to Vegas every year accidentally for the past like 4
Oh,
I went to Vegas literally
yes.
that same weekend the year before too.
That's right.
Yeah, I'd never been for a bachelorette though before. And I really enjoyed it. I'm convincing Julia that we should like come on and do a full like recap talking about it and everything because I don't know, like girls trips and stuff can be really intimidating, but it was a really great group of girls. Like there was not one girl that I didn't like hang out with one-on-one that didn't have a great time. So it's making me like really excited for the wedding because then I'm gonna like know all these girls there and it's gonna be really fun.
Did you know everyone from
I only knew Naomi and then her sister Cass.
Oh, wow.
So I knew.
And how many of you were there?
11.
Oh, so a lot of people.
Yeah, there's 11 of us. There was a lot.
Nice.
So from all different parts of life, it was so much fun. Did take years off my life for sure. But it was super fun. And then I had 2 days at home before I flew out to go to the Cavendish Beach Music Festival on Prince Edward Island.
Right.
Which was so exciting. I loved it. I've been to Stagecoach before, which is a massive festival. Going to a smaller one that was only about 25,000 people was really nice because like smaller grounds, more low-key vibe. I had so much fun. We had beautiful weather. And then from there, we went to Misa, which is a spa on PEI in St. Peter's Bay, and that was part of the island I've never been to before. Some of the best food I've ever had in my life. Like the chef it's like they don't pre-make anything. It's like made to order, and it's like farm to table. They showed us the greenhouse where all the food is. It was like magical. Like the food was to die for. And then after a couple days at the spa, which is the best way to recover from a music festival, I drove to my cottage in Nova Scotia, and that's where 8 of my like friends flew out and met us there. So it was 3 very different vibes. Spent some time at the cottage, then one wild night in Halifax, which also took years off my life, and ended up staying out till like 5 in the morning. But yeah, it was 3 it felt really long because I was away as long as I went to Europe in March, but it was just like 3 different vibes of
Okay,
trip.
so like 3 different places, 3 different vibes. What were the, say, 3 highlights of each?
Like one highlight for each.
Yeah,
you mean?
one highlight for each.
The music festival highlight was definitely just like the vibe of it. Like I know that's really like broad, but I just loved that it was a really low key festival. Like I am describing to everyone that like Cavendish is a festival you can go to in like your 20s and 30s and like have a really good time. And, like it's more chill, as opposed to like a Boots and Hearts, which I've never been, but it's like I think it's skews a little younger and like more party. Not to say you don't, but that was probably a highlight. The spa highlight was that I just like, I don't know the last time I just had like a full day just to like read my book and finish a book like completely. I haven't had that in a really long time, so that was a highlight. And then the cottage highlight was getting to share it with my friends. Like that was my first time hosting people that were friends, not family. I got a little got a little teary-eyed around my fire pit that I dug. I'm like, so there was just like getting to share that with my friends who, I don't know, like loved it as much as I do. That was really a highlight for me as well.
That's kind of what like, you want for a space like that too, right?
For
It's like it's
sure.
only as good as like the memories that you're making with
Exactly.
people that you love there.
I know, it was so good. And then like Halifax is just like one of my favorite cities, so it's always a good time. And just like all those, like getting to like share some of my favorite places with some of my favorite people just made it so much better.
Oh, that's huge.
I know. So what was speaking of food, because I talked a little bit about some of the food that I ate when I was on Prince Edward Island. What was the best meal that you had on your trip?
It's tough because there were a lot of really
different, like,
good
types of
ones.
cuisines,
Yeah, different
too.
types. I think like
You can do like a top 3 if you want.
well, there is a standout for sure. And
Really?
the
What was
standout
it?
is, so we flew from Paris to Napoli
Mm-hmm.
and then we had just enough time for lunch before we like took a train
Mm-hmm.
and a taxi to like go to the coast. But we went to, I'm blanking on the name of it, but it was like the restaurant that invented margarita pizza essentially.
Oh, really?
And there it was just so good.
It was that good.
It was that good. Yeah. It was like wildly different than any other, just in terms of quality, any other margarita pizza that I ever had. And that's just like a classic. You know, you think that it might be
Like the same, like
or
universal.
easy to kind of nail anywhere, but this was just far and above so good.
Oh my God.
Yeah. If I had to say another thing though, probably the tapas in Barcelona. We
Yeah,
ate
that's
a
what
lot
I
of
really- yeah,
tapas. It was
that'd be
just
good.
like, and it's so fun to eat tapas because it's like, let's order 8 different things and have
Yeah.
8 completely different things. I was so full by the end of it.
Oh, you went to like a lot of places with a lot of good food.
Yeah.
I just would have come back weighing 90 million pounds in pasta.
Well, you can do that with lobster linguine. pretty
Yeah,
easily.
basically. I know. I ate so much
Is
lobster
that the
linguine.
highlight? How was the food at the festival? Actually, I'm always.
I ate a lot of fried food at the festival. I had doner poutine. So if you don't know what doner is actually like a Lebanese like dish because a lot of like Lebanese people immigrated to the East Coast. And when they did, they brought over doner meat, and it's like beef or lamb or whatever, the mixture. I have no idea. So anyways, it's like on like a spit. It's like how
Shawarma
shawarma is
kinda?
made. Same thing, except for it's a dark meat. And it's my favorite thing because it comes with doner sauce. And if you get pizza in Toronto, at some places you can order doner sauce with it. And it's like this sweet, so it's like sweet and salty. I had doner poutine at the festival, and I was in heaven. It was amazing because it was like poutine, then with doner, then a doner sauce on top. It was amazing. I also had doner eggs Benedict when I was in Halifax, and that was
Whoa.
also freaking
with
bomb.
the same meat, like
Yeah, doner meat. It was unreal. It was so good. I mean, all the seafood's just so fresh out there. It's so good. I mean, like one of my favorite restaurants in the world is the Bicycle Thief, and we went there when I was in Halifax. Again, I needed to take all my friends there. Also, like Sidney Crosby was there. We were eating there.
Wait.
Yeah, and Nathan McKinnon. It was so casual. It was very funny. Like I kept
Are
joking.
they from PEI?
No, this is in Halifax.
Oh, sorry.
It's like known to be like their favorite
Yeah,
go-to
yeah.
restaurant. And I kept joking with my friends like, oh yeah, we're gonna sit at Sid's table tonight, but then no, we didn't. Sid set his own table. But yeah, I had lobster linguine there, and it's like one of my favorite meals on the planet. It is so good. And they have these like little scallops that it's Italian and seafood brought together, so it's like authentic Italian food with like fresh
Okay,
seafood.
that's what I noticed on the Amalfi Coast as well. I'm not a huge seafood fan.
Me neither, but the fusion with the Italian food makes it next level.
And when it's so fresh.
Yeah, that's the
'cause
difference.
It's just caught right there.
Yeah, it's like when I went to Prime Seafood Palace here in Toronto, which is like a very expensive meal. Like the first thing they say to us when they walk up, they go, just so you know, like anything that says fresh seafood in Ontario is allowed to be on a truck for 2 days. So
They
like
tell you that.
Yeah, and they told us that straight up. And so I was like,
Shout out Matt
I
and
literally
Maxim,
was
by the
like,
way.
I know, literally. I was like, shout out for being so honest though from the start, because we went there mostly like we had some shrimp and steak and stuff. But when you're on the East Coast, like fresh seafood's like caught that morning
Yeah.
or prepared that morning.
Which made me feel a little. Did this make you feel better? It's like I don't feel as guilty for not liking it here.
No, it's
Because
different.
yeah.
It's literally different. Like my friends who had never tried lobster before said this, or had tried lobster before and other things, are like all of them agreed. Like they're not, because they're like, it doesn't smell like seafood. I go, yeah, because this is fresh seafood. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
have that same
Yeah.
like aura to it and stuff.
I would not mess with this in Toronto, but like tuna steak that was just quickly seared and then it was basically just raw. It wasn't my favorite, but like,
Yeah, I
It was
don't-
better than wildly better than I thought it
and
was
you
gonna
wouldn't
be.
screw with that here.
Yeah.
That kind of like goes up. Like one of the questions I had actually, well, someone commented was, what's the biggest difference between the East Coast and Toronto? I mean, like food obviously is like a big one, but for me, just like the vibe in general is a lot more low key.
Do you find yourself more relaxed out there?
Yes and no. This trip was a little different. Like I was more relaxed, but having 10 friends at the cottage was for the first time was a little stressful.
Stressful. Was it like good stress, like an upper
No,
that you were
like
excited?
it
or,
was,
like-
but I was also just like making sure everyone's okay. Like I'm like
Yeah,
hosting, right? So you're
yeah.
on a little bit. So that made it. So I was fine after the first day, but I like the first day I was like pretty like in my head about
you're
it.
doing the grocery.
Yeah,
run,
me
you're-
making sure everything's like good and ready, and we have enough food and drinks and this and that. Like, but we're all adults. Like my friends are fine. Like they can fend for themselves. But like I just was so like stressed about it. But I do find myself more relaxed out there because I literally don't put on a lick of makeup. I don't care when I'm out there. It's just something's a little bit different. It like forces me. It's the only place in the world that forces me to take like to slow down.
Yeah, well,
Whereas
it's also
everywhere
nice where
else-
like an activity can be like a walk on the beach.
Well, and that's my favorite thing. Like I every morning go on a walk on the beach with my coffee, and then every evening I go on a sunset walk with like a glass of wine. And like it's so simple, but like that's what I look forward to every single day. It's just like that act. And like
Yeah,
something as simple as playing cornhole with my friends and that type of stuff. Like I just like very simple activities, or just reading all day. Like we were at the spa and we were like all sitting around the table eating dinner, and we're like, do you guys just want to like go outside and read somewhere? So we were all reading really good books, and like just that was like so wholesome. We spent the whole day not talking to each other reading, but it was like one of my favorite days
Yeah.
because we just like were devouring. So it forces me to take a step back. I could not live out there. Like I could not stay out there forever. Halifax is too small of a city for me. Like there's just things like when I come back to Toronto, it still is like my home, and that's like I love the like liveliness of it, but I do love that it forces me to slow down.
yeah, it gives me the perspective, and I got a little bit of that on the kind of coastal places that we went.
Yeah, because you were going like city, coast,
Yeah,
city. Like you were kind of
like,
back and forth.
And it wasn't on the coast, but like even the small town Epernay
Yeah.
with like the Champagne region was really quiet. So
Yeah.
we kind of had like big city, small town, or like
Yeah.
coastal vibe, big city, small town, and it was nice to actually stagger it like that because
Mm-hmm.
it was like okay, rush, energy, da da da, and then a little bit more of a perspective and like
Yeah.
oh, see the part of the world that you're actually.
Yeah,
staying
and it's
in.
like up and then it's pull back. So I'd say that's like the biggest difference is just like the pace, I guess, and it forces me to slow down.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do, and my friends know me for it, is rose and thorn. So every year on everyone's birthday, I ask what was your rose and thorn for the whole year. It took a lot of me not to actually incorporate it as part of this podcast every single week, but I didn't because I feel like it was a little too generic. But I do want to know, what was your rose and thorn of your travels?
Okay, Rose was just like I think the overall seeing things that were so new to me and experiencing different cultures and different languages and like being uncomfortable in that. Every time we went to a new city or country that had different culture, a different
Yeah.
language, it was like a kind of not off-putting. That's not the right word, but it's like it gets you. You have to be so active and present with where you are to just like do basic things, which gave me a lot more perspective.
Especially when you've like just like, I feel like when traveling Europe and you're bouncing around, you just get used to one place and then it's like, oh, now we're leaving. Like just
I'm
as you get settled.
I just learned how to say some like basic stuff in Italian. Now I'm all of a sudden in Spain. Like this isn't gonna work.
Oh my God,
out.
what a
I
what
know
a
they're not problems to really
I
have,
know, it's true,
but it was
it's
just
true.
that was I liked how kind of out of my comfort zone it put me.
Oh, I like that.
Which just is not something that you get to experience on a regular day being at home. It's like you have to kind of travel to
yeah,
get that
to do
kind
that.
of
Especially when you're
uncomfortable.
going places that speak different languages. Because like you started in England, which is obviously they speak English. Like that's not, it's like jarring right
Although
away.
the funniest thing was like my stupidest story about language barrier happened in England.
What happened?
Haley was hungry. We're at a pub, and she looks to the table beside us, and they have cheddar and salt and vinegar potato chips. And she's like, "Oh, I'd love some chips. Could you go to the bar? Because I was closest. Could you go to the bar and get me some chips?" And I was like,
You
"Yeah,
said
definitely." I
you
stand up
asked
and
for
I'm like, "Okay, can I get a bag of chips?" And the guy looked at me. He's like, "A bag? What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Yeah, just bag chips." And he's like, "Well, we only have the one kind." And I was like, "I see several behind you, sir." I didn't say that, but I was like, "Okay." Paid the man. And he's like, "All right."
He
And I was
crushed
like,
it.
I turned around and I was like, "Oh no, what have I just done?" Then I turned back to him and I was like, "Could I also get one of those?" And he's like, "Is that what you wanted?" I was like, "Nope, I definitely wanted both chips and potato
He
crisps."
brought you out French fries,
Yeah, I
didn't
got
he?
both, yeah. But even that was kind of funny. When you're traveling, you really have to like sit in your embarrassment sometimes.
What always humbled me was when I would be in France and I'm like, oh my God, like my grade 9 French is coming through. And I'd be like, un café. And then they go, would you like milk in that? And like immediately. Or they'll go, that's $7.95. I'm like, ooh, humbled immediately. What was your thorn?
My thorn, I think probably we had like one fight, which was bad. It wasn't a bad fight, but it was like, it kind of ruined the boat tour that we went on in Vegas.
That's bound to happen though when you're traveling.
And that was mostly because I was running on like 3 hours of sleep.
Exactly.
After like the first 3 days, or it was kind of the middle, but like the first 3 days.
Well,
of
and we know
bad.
that you didn't sleep on the plane over, so
Well,
you
that's
were
what it
derailed,
was.
and you're
then
just
it was
like,
it was a
downhill
lot to
from there.
take in, and then we got in a tussle. But you know what? We worked it out.
And you came out stronger for it. That's why you have to travel with people. It's true though.
Yeah,
That's
well,
why.
exactly.
And for long periods of time.
Yeah, we made it through the rest of the trip. Were there any embarrassing moments on your trips? I want to know more about
Embarrassing?
Vegas.
I keep forgetting I went to Vegas.
I know.
Vegas. Okay, so shout out Sam, who was the MVP of our trip for getting us free booth and bottles from all of these people and like full 11 girls. Like that's tough. And she would just like bat her eyelashes and go and talk to a guy, and we would end up drinking $15,000 bottles of Dom Perignon in like in a booth at the Chainsmokers with like the best spot. Like it was like incredible watching that. I was like, this is like, I just don't have the, like, I don't have the balls to do that.
Yeah.
And she was just like, nope, I got you. And she'd go up and she'd be like, Sarah, come with me. And we'd walk over and she'd be like, well, can my friends come into the booth too? And he goes, well, how many of you are there? She goes, 11. And then she goes, but we're really fun. So like and then we just take over a booth and it's like, it's ours. Like it was wild. I just never experienced Vegas like that before. Yeah, it was
Was it a lot of like pool parties, day
yeah,
parties?
we did both. So when I've gone to Vegas before, I've done like, you do a pool party or a nightclub.
Yeah.
We did a pool party and a nightclub every single night. Some of the girls, the second we got off the plane, went to the club. I knowing my limits and playing within it, I like tapped out, and my room was like, now we're too tired for this, because we landed at like 11 p.m. and by the time it was whatever. So I was like, I will not survive the rest of the weekend. But then we went to pool party during the day, on the first day, and then went to another pool party because we're like, this one's lame. And then went to another pool party, and then some guy talked to us about how he was going to do an animal sacrifice in the middle of the desert that night because he had stage 4 cancer, and he had sold his tech company, and he was going to try and cure his cancer by doing this animal sacrifice.
Excuse me?
Yeah, that's the type of stuff you hear in Vegas. Like wild.
Did anyone?
No, we didn't go with him. He just like, we didn't follow up either. But he goes, yeah, I'm starting chemo next week, but I'm going to do this animal sacrifice because I think that's going to help.
Oh my God.
I was like, yeah, good luck.
So like some interesting characters.
Very interesting characters in Las Vegas, always.
Any gambling?
Yeah, and I'm a winner. Duh.
Yeah?
I'm really
What's your-
good at the slots. I give myself like $100 though, and I just play within that. And then once I hit like a couple jackpots, and I just walk around and I go like boop boop, like with jackpots like the mini ones. I win like
bring it
75.
out like that,
But I'm like betting like 50 cents each time. But did a little gambling. I played like one round of blackjack. And I was like, this is lame. I'm bad at this, and we just stopped.
Yeah.
But we went to the nightclubs, saw all the DJs, saw the Canadian DJs, saw Loud Luxury. Then we saw the Chainsmokers, and then the Chainsmokers, I'm like dying. I'm like ready to go to bed, and they're like, it's like 3:30 in the morning at this point, because you don't leave for the club in Vegas until 1:30 in the morning. It's insane. Like I was going and getting a shot of espresso at Starbucks at 12:30 at night so that I could like make it through the night.
Yeah.
And then we go to the club, and it's 3:30 in the morning. I'm like, oh my God, thank God. Like they're going to wrap up. Like we can go home. And they go, we're practicing for Tomorrowland, so we're going to give you another 90 minutes. I turn to Naomi and I just go, pass me the bottle of champagne. Pass it to me right now. I was like, I need it. And then the most fun was then Googling. As soon as we got back to the room, Julia and I just like laying in bed Googling how much the booth cost and how much like these
Do
people
it running the
spent.
stats?
It's like $75,000.
Oh, man.
The bottle of Dom was $15,000.
Listen.
Imagine having that money that you can just on strangers that you're never going to see again, and you just like spend that money. And we drank
I
it
don't
all.
get that. Like,
I don't understand Vegas culture, but as a woman, I will abuse it because you have to for feminism.
Yeah.
It's like if you're dumb enough to pay that much money for it, then it's like not my fault, you know? It's true.
It's so true. And then were there any like bonding moments?
Bonding moments. I mean, like,
We can see it.
yeah, like I mean, I just really loved all the girls, so that was really fun. Like honestly, like all the girls were great. Seeing Julia come out as like club party Julia was so much fun because I hadn't really seen that side of her before, so that was really fun. And just all the girls meshed really well, and that was really fun. But going right from that to a music festival was
Okay, I was just gonna say
Whiplash.
probably like going to see Loud Luxury in Vegas could not be more different than going to
Cavendish Beach Music Festival, where it's more low key and I'm just listening to my country singers. Like, yeah, it was, but it was a good difference. Like, it was like, I'm glad that Cavi was after and a little bit more low key. Cause I'm at home by like 11:30 every night. Like, you're not like staying out till.
Would you go back to Cavendish?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. I literally have already told all my friends that we all have to go next year. It was so much fun.
Oh,
I
so
loved
good.
it. And the lineups are so good.
Okay, who's the favorite artist? And then maybe
Okay.
like a sleeper artist that was good that you didn't expect.
Sleeper artist? I am now a huge fan of the Reclaws. They
Really?
Canadian.
They're
and
they're married, right? Is that true?
no, they're brother and sister.
Whoops. Sorry, guys.
They're brother and sister. I never like look. I was always, like sometimes when you roll your eyes, like, oh, like they're just like Canadian, whatever.
Yeah.
They put on the best show. They were so fun. They were high level energy the entire time. They were so like it was a party. Like it was so much fun. And then they were both so good live. And I'm literally like, okay, well, when are you coming to Toronto? Like I need to go see them. Like so, I love the Reclaws now. And then Kane Brown was like actually shocked me at how good he was live. I didn't really have any expectation for him, and he was great. And then Megan Maroney, she was amazing. She's someone that I think is going to be like, she's really blown up in the past year. I think she's someone that like in 5 years from now, everyone will be like, holy shit, you saw her at 4 p.m. on a Saturday at Cavendish, So
I love those kind of festivals. I went to, what did I go to just before my trip? It was the first year of it, Meadows. The Reclaws actually played the day I didn't go to, I think.
Oh, really?
That's probably why I don't know that. And then I'm going to, in a few weeks.
You're one in Elora, right?
Elora Riverfest. Riverfest Elora, which is also sounds like a similar vibe where you have, it's a little bit more low key. However, I find that those types of festivals are so well booked that like the difference, like you just said, a 4 p.m. artist, a 2 p.m. artist are just like wildly good, and they're putting on a great show for who's there. It's like you can't go wrong.
And my friend Brad, I never got to see him drum before, and he performs with Jade Eagleson. I went to university with Brad, and he was performing with Jade Eagleson, so I got to watch him perform on like the main stage, and that was so cool. And then he was performing with another artist on the Saturday, and he threw me his drumstick.
Okay,
so I
this
have
was
his
the drummer.
drumstick.
I saw.
No, it wasn't just a groupie for a random drummer.
Well, I know.
Which, like,
I was
some
like,
people thought.
I didn't ask you about it, but I saw you post about him a couple times. I was like, how do you know this drummer so well?
I've known Brad since like for like oh my god, like forever. He was RTA at Ryerson too. So
nice.
yeah. So he's been drummer for Said the Whale, like all of these, like
cool.
yeah. So it was really cool getting to see him perform because like I've known him always as like just very like low key and like kind of like more like laid back and a little bit more shy, and seeing him like perform was really sick. So that was like definitely a highlight for me. But
Amazing. Okay, I'm gonna toss the rose and thorn back at you, but let's skip to the cottage now, because as I was on my trip, the other project that I'm now like going full on.
you have like a
is
full blown foundation now in your cottage now.
So the forms are up for it. There's footings and the forms are up, and
It's
they're
crazy.
gonna pour it probably by the time this episode's out. The foundation's gonna be done and moving on to framing it.
That's
so
crazy.
I'm trying to catch up to you because I'm excited to do
Are
the
you gonna
same
get
kind
out
of
there
thing
and
of
dig
just
your own
like
fire pit?
it's already done. That was the first thing we did as soon as we bought the place.
Oh, I love that.
It's not as nice as yours.
Am
yet.
I
It's
giving
what
you
we're gonna have
rose
to
and
do.
thorn for?
Yeah, for the friends
cottage?
trip, because it was the first time that you were hosting
Yeah.
friends.
Thorn was I let myself get too stressed about it. Like I got in my head too much about it in the first day, which like I just tend to do. I just, when I'm hosting, sometimes I get like a little overwhelmed, and I was just so anxious about it. Like also I was in the back of my head, I'm like, oh my God, what if we start the next Nova Scotia wildfire? I was fucking terrified about that happening,
yeah.
which like obviously like we followed the fire laws and when you're allowed to have them and stuff, but it's still like my anxiety was on like a peak for the first day. So that was my thorn for sure, allowing myself to like get that anxious about it. But a rose was like, I don't even know, like just when I bought this cottage last year, all I wanted was to share it with my friends. So getting to finally do that, I think was just the rose, that it was just like getting to see it come to fruition, getting to see it come to fruition, and like seeing everyone sitting around the fire and like us just playing cornhole and like someone's barbecuing and we're listening to music and like the sun is setting, and like it literally was like exactly how I pictured it when I got it. So it felt like it like manifested itself into like the perfect week.
Oh, it's amazing. I also like when like a friend group kind of develops over the span of a few days. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, that's the chef. This is like the
100%.
coffee, the person who makes
Yeah.
the coffee in the morning. This is the person who's gonna like make sure that the table's set.
Well, it was so funny because like my sister texted me at one point. She goes, "This looks like it's a girls' trip and a boys' trip that happens to be in the same place." Because the boys would go golfing every day during the day, and then the girls would like hang out and we just like tan or go to the beach or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was great because we'd all come together at night and be able to talk about like what we did that day, which was really fun. But yeah, it was like the rose was that it met / exceeded my expectations, and I had pretty high expectations for
Oh,
that.
that's so good.
What's next for you? Are you traveling anywhere else?
First, I'm going to say one more thorn. One other thorn that I have that I just thought about for my trip is that my packing was awful. Forget about just bringing around the book.
I told you
know what I
not to
did?
overpack.
I overpacked. We did carry-on only for 3 weeks. I overpacked.
That's bold.
And I was going to buy things. I ended up, because I injured my knee, I ended up throwing out it was a ratty pair. I was happy to retire anyway, but a pair of running shoes.
Okay.
That was huge. It was big. And this was the dumbest thing I ever did. I don't know what was going through my head, but I brought, I think it was like 4 or 5 t-shirts. I ended up counting because I was just like throwing them in. I brought 13 pairs of underwear. When I counted them, I was in Paris like a few days into the trip. It was like it's day 6.
Yeah.
I was like, I have the ratios of what I've brought here
Didn't make any sense. Did not make any sense.
Did not make any sense.
You did carry on only.
Yeah, and you know what?
That's crazy.
I think it was, but you were saying don't overpack, but you also said watch out for the cobblestones, which was such good advice. I can't imagine hauling around another big bag or something like that couldn't be put on top.
And same with trains. Like the trains, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a 2-suitcase girl in like on my most recent trip, and it was only because we were like driving places, which is why it was easy. But I was like, oh my God, I could have never done this like anywhere else.
Yeah.
What's your next trip, or what's next for you over the next like few weeks or months?
Going out
Rest of
to Calgary for a wedding
Oh, fun. I was at a wedding in Calgary last year.
in September.
Okay,
But
so that's a ways away.
yeah,
You're just here then?
I'm just here, I think. Gonna like focus on the cottage builds. I'm gonna be going up north to just spend some time up there. And then also, Alora Music Festival, Riverfest, and then some other concerts and stuff like that, which I'm excited to kind of have a home base again here in the city.
Get back into a routine a little bit.
Exactly. What about you? I know you have trips coming up that you are so excited for.
I'm so excited for. Okay, well, I'm here for 1 month. The next big thing, my summer was basically in 2 big blocks of trips. So previously I've done like weeks on and off, but these 2 big blocks. So I just got through big block number 1. Second big block is at the middle of August. I leave in the middle of August to go to Budapest for 2 weeks for work. The World Athletics Championships. If you follow me on Instagram and TikTok, you would have known last year I spent my 2 weeks in Eugene, Oregon. So this year I get to go somewhere cool. I get to go to Budapest. I've never been before, so that'll be good. And then I land from Budapest at 2 p.m. on like a Monday, and then Tuesday at 7 a.m., meaning I have to be at the airport at like 5 a.m. So I'm home for like 13 hours. And then I fly to Montana for one of my very good friends' weddings. And like we're there for Montana from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, weddings on the Thursday. The Friday, I then, because why go home? Why not make it a whole trip? Then Nolan and I are going to New York for the long weekend for the Labor Day weekend or whatever, that long weekend.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It sounds exhausting saying it right now. So I'm going to hopefully sleep on those planes, but then we're going to go to like the US Open probably for tennis and stuff. So that'd be cool. But yeah, that's my next big block.
Amazing. Well, training for a half marathon.
Yeah, I have to run in Budapest. I have to. Text me. I have to be held accountable.
I will.
Ask for my like stats or else I won't do it. Well, we've just caught you up on our lives, and now we're going to try and catch up with our voicemail segment, answer some questions, give some advice. As always, if you have a question or something you want us to talk about, you can follow us at Talking Fast Show on Instagram. I don't know how to make a Threads account for the Talking Fast account. Maybe by this episode going out, I will have one, and then you can message us there. Or you can shoot us an email at talkingfastshow@gmail.com. Jacob, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First question is, what is a hidden Toronto attraction?
It's not going to come as any surprise to you, Sarah.
It's probably in the East End.
That it's going to be in the East End. And you know what? It's not even hidden. It's hidden in plain sight. I'm just going to give a huge shout out. Wait, how long have you lived in Toronto?
I'm going on 10 years.
Have you ever spent a day at Woodbine Beach?
Yeah, I grew up going to Woodbine Beach because my cousin lives there.
Okay. Most people don't know.
Which is crazy.
Have friends in the East End, I find. You know how many people I've brought or like hung out with at Woodbine Beach in the last, say, few different years who were like, oh, this is actually a really nice beach.
It's beautiful. Woodbine Beach is huge. I'd say it's the biggest one in the city, right?
For sure. Yeah. And it stretches forever. There are nice pockets of like, there's like the kind of happening bigger part of the beach where people have music and brave people go in the water. But then there's like nice stretches. There's a huge boardwalk,
and
nice
they have
little
volleyball
restaurants,
nets and stuff.
volleyball. There's a tennis club. There's all sorts of stuff
There's
going
a pool.
on.
I love Woodbine Beach.
Yes.
And it's not that far on the streetcar.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's just like, you know what? Hop on the subway, hop on the streetcar. You'll be okay. And it's a great way to spend a day. Most people don't want to venture east. I'm giving a shout out to Woodbine Beach.
Which is kind of crazy that people don't want to venture east. Hidden gem.
Hidden gem.
Again, like, is it a hidden gem? I think not, but I think people like don't utilize it enough is the island.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
I think you grab a couple bikes. I don't go on the ferry because the ferry, like, it's the way other. It's so far from where I live. Take like a little tiki taxi or a pirate taxi. Those things are like $7 to get across. It only costs like maybe they're $9, like $2 more expensive than taking the ferry. Like, you might as well do it.
And you're getting the free. If you want to take the ferry back, you take the ferry back for free anyway.
Exactly.
If you're going that way.
If you're going that way, so you don't need a ticket to get back on the ferry. You just like can hop on, so it's great. And then the taxis can know whenever you want. Like, it's not like on a certain schedule. And you just go across, go with like a picnic. There's some actually hidden sneaky good restaurants on the island too. Like, there's like a little like brunch place that's there. There's a bar that's really cool. It's by the marina that my friend Maddie used to like. He used to live on a boat at the marina, so we'd always go to that bar, and it's got a great view of the city, and like it's very like it feels local, like feels like locals only. So I'd say like sneaky go to the island and don't just go to like the beach on the island. Like, go and find some of the restaurants, and there's like a whole little community out there.
There's also I think it's on at Wards. But I've been told that there's a pickup volleyball game running all summer on Saturdays. Yeah, on the beach.
There's always volleyball at Woodbine too, which is always really good.
Yeah. Oh, I'm big into it.
We're going into a more deep what?
Tag onto that. Guess what I got on Amazon Prime Day?
What'd you get on?
I'm not taking the ferry or a tiki taxi over the island. I got a stand-up paddleboard, an inflatable one. I'm gonna paddleboard over to the island.
Do it. I dare you to. And please invite me.
But you
to
know
watch.
what? It's only.
Did
I'm
you know
gonna
I
go-
used to
gonna
teach stand-up paddleboard lessons?
Did I used to
No,
teach
I
them?
did you know that I used to?
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I was in high school. When I like would coach canoe and kayaking, and I taught stand-up paddleboard lessons.
It's a good time.
Yeah, it's
I
fun.
like it a lot.
Get your J stroke and your C stroke going.
Oh yeah. Whoosh, whoosh.
That is hilarious. You bought it on Prime Day. Wow, is it for your cottages? That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Gonna start practicing in the Toronto
And the
Harbor though. Okay, have fun with that.
Question number 2 for voicemail. How do you manage financial stability in your 20s?
That's a big-
Especially if you want to save and still travel and do things like that.
One's tough. I mean, everyone's relationship with money is so different. It's all based on how you grew up, right? So it's really difficult to be like, this is how you should do it. For me, I was very focused, as an example, on like paying off my student debt right out of school. Like that was, so I like put aside a certain amount of money, and I like did all the math on like how much I could afford to put away. And I didn't really travel during that time. I just like, but now I don't have any debt. So I can like take that money that I would have been putting towards my debt to put into travel or whatever. I right now I'm in like my travel era of saying yes to all those things. So that's just what I prioritize with my money. I was in the pandemic when I couldn't travel. I prioritized buying new clothes and that stuff more, but I don't do that as much right now. I'm more in my like taking that money and spending it on travel and experiences. So I just, especially in the summertime, I'm a very big like yes to travel and like experiences in the summer that I like hibernate a bit in the winter and don't do as much. So I think it just depends on like your priorities, and that's different for every single person.
Yeah, I would say first of all, we've talked about this before, but like budget, so you know what you have to have just for your living expenses to make sure that you're really not screwing yourself long term. I can't emphasize that enough, because otherwise you could have some fun, but like you're gonna be in bad shape. However, I did a little bit of a different thing after university. I made the minimum payment for as long as I could on my student loans, so I would have a little bit of extra cash that I could go and spend on things that I wanted to be doing. I didn't travel that much because obviously, I wasn't making as much money and that kind of thing. But also I chose to just like not stress about that as much.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, I'm going to be paying more interest over a longer period of time. But then the flip side of that for me was like, well, then I can take the little bit of extra money I might have and invest in things like spending time with friends or going to concerts that I wanted to and whatnot.
I just like, you're never going to regret like travel or spending time with friends and family and those types of opportunities. So like, I don't know. That's like what I'm doing right now. And I think in your 20s, that's a really good time to think about it. I remember my friends had invited me on this massive trip to go to Southeast Asia and Australia and New Zealand with them. And I didn't go because I was like, it's too much money. Like I can't, and I could have afforded it and I chose not to go. And it's like, I don't have a lot of regrets, but it's a regret that I have because I was just so anxious about money. Like and now that trip is however many times more expensive now for me to go. Right. So if you look at it that way too.
And I think that like I find anyway, there's a disconnect between, and this is kind of a trope that people talk about a lot, but I think it's true, that there's a disconnect between what you see on social media in terms of aspirational trips and like what is actually possible.
For sure.
You can travel for
really cheap,
pretty inexpensively. And I did that a little bit. Like I did a cross Canada tour and was out on the West Coast, like right after university. And I was with a big group of friends, and like there were 5 of us staying in a hotel room for 4, and we were sharing beds, and like we were booking hotels that had a continental breakfast so we could take the muffins for lunch kind of thing. And it's like those experiences, I wouldn't trade them for the world, because it's like, you're not living a lavish trip, but it doesn't have to be a lavish trip for it to be like so important.
I think in your 20s you have to remind yourself that you're working way up to like the trips of like even just the luxury of staying in a hotel versus staying in a hostel or something, right? Like my first time I went to Europe with my sister back in 2021, we like ate at 3 restaurants. I remember I got shit on TikTok for people like, you're in like France, you're not eating at the restaurants. I go, yeah, because I can't like afford to do it. Like, and I'm like, my budget for this trip is and do you know what? I love brie cheese and like some prosciutto and like a baguette from the grocery store, which is going to cost me €7. So I think it's just reminding yourself too that you don't have to be going on the trips that are like, life is long, right? Like you don't have to be going on the trips that like you see on Instagram of your dreams right now. You can like wait a little bit, but I would say you'll never regret travel though and spending money on that or experiences if you're able to save a little money on the side for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Our final mailbag question is, how do you deal with friends who have various incomes and overcoming awkwardness when it comes to finances with your friends? I think this also kind of goes into with traveling with friends too, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one. I think you have to be, this is tough. You have to be like aware of everyone's means. You don't necessarily have to talk about that, but you can't go into a trip with the expectation that everyone is going to be contributing or able to pay what you envision the trip to be.
Or you have to understand that, like, if a friend has to say no to something because they can't afford something or whatever, it's like, that's just like, and that's completely fine.
I've seen feelings get hurt because they're like, oh, they don't want to do this because they don't want to spend time with me or like this and that, when it's really just a financial decision, when it's like, this isn't responsible for me to be doing that.
I'm entering this era right now, and it is weird, right? Because it's like, you're on such an even playing ground when like you're in university and stuff, right? Because you're all in the same program, you're all in the same thing. Your first job's at a school, usually pretty even playing ground. Everyone's making roughly the same money. But now that I'm 5 years out of university, I'm entering that mode where, I mean, like, we have people like Nolan, who goes to law school, and although he was in school that whole time, now he like comes out and like makes more money than like maybe our friends who've been working. Like, it's just like it's a weird transition that you do go through. But I think that just goes back to like, if you're traveling with them or you're doing things, it's just being open and honest about people's expectations, like financially for trips and stuff like that as well.
And never trade. This is maybe like the blunt to say, but it's like, I wouldn't also trade friends that are making less.
Like,
you know what I mean?
Obviously not.
No, but I think that some people do. I think
you
that some people, and I've seen it happen of like, people are like,
if they can't afford their lifestyle.
Yeah, I'm just gonna hang out with people that are like in my tax bracket or something.
Oh, that's
There is
stupid.
like nothing grosser to me than that, especially if like, you know, you're long-term friends or something. You can't buy old friends.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
that's so true. And I also just think it goes multiple ways, like not being resentful if friends do make more money than you, or like and people are in different eras of their life, or things like that happening as well. Like, I think that can sometimes cause for some awkwardness. So yeah, I just think as long as you're open and honest with, like, you don't have to be open and honest about how much money you're making, but like with expectations when it comes to like,
and also don't feel bad about yourself. Like, I've been in a lot of positions where like I'm traveling with people who make a lot more money than me or have a lot more money in the bank, and I'm just like, I'm happy for you. Yeah, that's great. And if you want to buy this round of shots, let's go.
That's the best way to do it.
But I'm not gonna. Don't feel less than because of your bank account.
Yeah, it literally, that doesn't matter. Thank you so much for listening to yet another episode of Talking Fast. Hope you enjoyed us catching up. I enjoyed catching up. Feels like we haven't done this in a really long time. So we're getting back into it. Let us know, as always, who you want to hear from, what you want us to talk about, what do you want from us. And we will be back here next Wednesday with another episode, and we will see you then. Bye.